Cheers everyone! It's been a while, but today we're finally discussing a very requested lore topic, the Blades, or Iron Ones depending on how you want to call them. Before we start, I just want to mention that for this video I'll try a more structured approach with timestamps and transitions, which will be below in the description, so let me know what you think about it. But with that being said, roll the intro. First things first, what or who are the Iron Ones? The Iron Ones are souls connected to strong pieces of metal or some kind of armor with the use of soul stones, first created by the Circle Mage Hokan Ashir. They were created at the very end of the Convocation Wars, not too long before the Convocation itself, and were used to fight Uram the Red. Hokan desperately needed a way to beat Uram and his demon hordes, which were slowly but surely getting the upper hand against his own undead. Once he finally figured out how to bind souls to metal, he was able to create the Soul Forger, a powerful Iron One with the ability to create lesser Iron Ones. It's important to mention that Hokan started this research much earlier than the Convocation Wars. Binding the souls to metal, while it required a lot of power, wasn't the difficult part, but rather figuring out how to actually do it, which is why Hokan always took good care that none of the other Circle Mages knew about this project of his. Anyhow, the Blades first appeared at the Battle of Kaith Halua during his conflict with Uram, and they eventually decided the outcome of the war, turning it in Hokan's favour. Some of Uram's former legionaries described them as terrifying and capable of dominating all of Io had the Convocation not broken out.
Cord told me you had fought in Kaith Halur.
That is correct. I was there. That was over 8 years ago. A horrible butchery. Only a few days before the Convocation broke out. All the weeks before, we hastened from one victory to another. Olata's hordes overran everything. They stomped Hokan's grey armies into the dust. But then, when we had already set Kaith Halur on fire, they came. Black creatures, nightmares of steel covered with blades and quills. They cut through our ranks like mowers through ripe grain stalks. They knew neither mercy nor exhaustion. Their cries, I'll never forget that as long as I live. We call them the Blades, and if the Convocation hadn't arrived, they would have mown us all down, all of us.
However, due to the Convocation, most if not all of the Blades were destroyed, including Hokan's Soul Forger, which caused all the lesser Iron Ones to collapse and sink into the mud of the battlefields. During the events of the Order of Dawn, a young Rowan Tahir went to the grave of Hokan Ashir in Whisper and stole his secret of the Iron Ones to create their armies for himself. This allowed Rowan to replicate what Hokan did and create his own Soul Forger, which he intended to use to accomplish his plans of going back through time and turning the Convocation in his favour. His plans were ultimately faltered when the Phoenix Bearer slew the Soul Forger, which once again caused the Iron Ones to become inactive.
Slave? Then you're the one who's been destroying my armies.
I need your help. Only your knowledge can save the nations of the North. I offer you the mask of Belial in exchange for your knowledge.
The mask! At last! Give it to me!
Not until you have kept your part of the bargain. A mage of the Circle.
I know! A brother of the Circle came to my crypt. He mocked me and stole the secret of my Avengers.
The Blades. How can they be vanquished?
By killing the Soul Forger. He is the most powerful being I ever created. He forges the blades from the souls of tortured individuals at the Dark Forge. Destroy the Soul Forger, and you destroy the Blades.
That being said, it didn't take long until Hokan Ashir, now revived through the power of the Mask of Belial, started creating new Soul Forges in the Black Jungle of Xu to aid him in his quest to merge with the demigod Belial. This allowed Hokan to create an insane amount of blades, perhaps even comparable to the numbers he had during the Convocation Wars. These blades weren't meant to take over Xu, but to protect Hokan during the ritual in the Bone Temple. It's possible that he would have used them to dominate Io once the ritual would be done, but that never happened thanks to the combined powers of the Phoenix Bearer and the Shadow Warrior. Using the Shadow Blade, they managed to free the Phoenix from its prison, and enraged, it destroyed Hokan along with the rest of the revived Circle Mages.
No, not you!
For a long time after this, the Iron Ones were not seen on Io, and this would be essentially the last time we saw Hokan's iteration of the Mortal Lands. However, it's important to mention that it was possible for the blades to be bound to the rune, which Hokan demonstrated in SpellForce Breath of Winter. They essentially have a soul within them, contained in the Soul Stone, which makes it possible for them to be bound to a rune. These Iron Ones can function without a Soul Forger, but the last of them also perished when the rune started losing its power. This all brings us to SpellForce 2 Dragonstorm and Yasha Ashia, Hokan's daughter. Years after her father's death, she decided to search through some of his secret records and recreate the Iron Ones in her own image. According to her, she wasn't able to recreate the Soul Stones that filled them with life like her father Hokan could. She wasn't powerful enough to do so, but she found out that the blood of the Shai Khan could be used to create something fairly similar, Bloodstones, which she then used to bring her blades to life. These blades are vastly different from Hokan's, mostly in terms of their design, which featured a cleaner and brighter look, going along with Yasha's wish to make them more visually appealing, among other things.
Silence. How did you create these blades? Your magic is ridiculous compared to your father's.
The dragon blood. I've long sought to reproduce my father's greatest work, but I could not create soul stones that would fill the metal with life. Until I found out that only a tiny amount of dragon blood was needed to create a bloodstone that gives the same life force. My blades need no souls. They are freer, stronger, and more beautiful.
And you will only use them when I tell you. I will use any means if it helps us to rescue the Soul Carrier.
Some of them also use weapons, although most retain the ability to use the sharp parts of their body to harm enemies. Yasha and her blades were ultimately stopped by the Shaper conquerors at Drahlua, and she was forced to use them to aid the Shai Khan and to find the Soul Carrier. After the events of Dragonstorm, the blades presumably remained in use, protecting the Shai Khan and their lands. Before I wrap up the video, I want to quickly go over the blades we see in SpellForce 3 because I know that someone will ask about them. To keep it short, I don't consider them to be canon, and not because they are in SpellForce 3. Well, in a way that is the reason, but let me explain. What I don't like is about how Rhonda Lacane managed to create them, since it took Hokan centuries to figure out the secret behind them, and he was not only a Circle Mage, which by itself granted him access to pretty much all knowledge on Io, but also a Zerbite in the past, had the Mask of Belial, and the power of the Archfire. Rhonda in SpellForce 3 is a priest and not that powerful either. The way in which he managed to actually do it is not really explained. Yasha Ashia made hers by using the blood of the Shai Khan, and young Rowan was able to create soul stones like Hokan did since he was also a Circle Mage, but Rhonda couldn't do either, and he couldn't have even known the secret behind them, because Hokan wasn't a Circle Mage at the time. It just seems very unlikely that Rhonda would have figured it out in a span of barely a decade, and it begs the question, why took Hokan so long then, with all the tools he had, and especially if we assume that the blades existed before. Wouldn't have Hokan researched those while creating his own? Their inclusion in SpellForce 3 just seems very forced and without much thought given about how they work and what it takes to create them. But that's all I have for you in this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave it a like and subscribe to the channel for more content. And also let me know your favorite blade unit from any SpellForce game in the comments and tell me why. I also want to say thanks to Lord H, a fellow SpellForce YouTuber who allowed me to use some of his gameplay footage for this video. His channel will be linked down in the description, so go check him out. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.